Good evening. It is Monday, May 13th, 2024. Welcome to episode 62 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. On tonight's broadcast, we'll be covering homestead news, a Q&A segment, Did You Know? A random quote asking you to decide if it came from a liberal or conservative, the weekly poll with the results from a multiple choice question asking you what is your most important issue for the 2024 election season. And the main topic of the evening is the decline of the American male. But as always, how are you doing this evening, Rebecca?
I'm doing good. I'm going to say I can't complain, but I can complain because of my allergies. Outside of that, we have gorgeous weather and couldn't ask for any more than that, except for the allergies to go away.
Right. Yeah. I know that I'm really fortunate. I don't have the seasonal allergies like you do, but it is definitely that time of year. But I suspect it's probably going to slow up here for you pretty soon because things are drying out quick. It's really warm. It went like in a week, it went from winter. Last Saturday, it was pouring down rain. And within the last, 3 days or so, it's been flirting with triple digits. So I don't know about you, but I'm almost kind of ready for summer, but it seems like it's trending that way. It's hot today.
It is hot today, and we have little bodies asking us, hey, is the pool warm enough? Can we come swim?
Right. Yeah, we need to get that pool slide in and everything, but yeah, it is definitely getting to be that time of year. And so what else have we been doing here on the homestead in the last week? One of the things is we took that sheep I was talking about last week, we took it to the auction. And I really kind of wanted to, get it out of here for one reason, but I was a little interested to see what prices were like. And, beef prices have been just stellar. And so I was thinking maybe that would translate over into the sheep market, but we got the check in the mail today and not so much. Not so much.
I honestly thought we were going to have to owe.
Yeah. It was a pretty small little female. She was small. Her mom was small and she was small. And she was only like 5 weeks. So she really shouldn't even have been weaned, but she was kind of a little problem child for us. So we just got her out of here and ran her through the auction. And I'm sure somebody's going to be more than grateful to have her. And we got $60 and then they took $20 back because of, we didn't tag them for scrapies here. So they're going to charge you $10 for scrapies. And then you got your yardage fees and you got your other commissions and things like that. So out of that $60, they took 20 of it back and we got a check for $40. How about that?
Woohoo.
Yeah, that's not going to buy much, but anyhow, last week, Rebecca challenged me to something, and that was said I wasn't going to do anything about those spikes out there that have been there for years. What's the status of that, Rebecca?
I have to say I was in the kitchen and I heard this noise and I said to our dog, I said, you know what? Dad's out there cutting those spikes. I can tell.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say something all day long till in the evening. And then I finally said, hey, I noticed you cut those spikes. So we did talk about that. And he actually came through and did it.
Well, it didn't take but a few minutes. And that's one of those things where you look at from time to time and you're like, yeah, I should probably do something about that. I hope nobody gets hurt on that as you walk by it for years. And then thankfully last week you gave me a little challenge, a little throwdown. So I managed to take care of that. But yeah, good evening, Bruce. How are you, man? It's hope things are well out your way. I understand you guys had some pretty wicked weather rolling through Tennessee with all the tornadoes. I guess it's tornado season for you guys. So you've been getting a bunch of that, but good evening. It's good to see you tonight.
Hello.
Yeah. And I guess this week I've been able to get a little bit more focused in the garden, which is good. I've been feeling like I haven't been doing enough there and I'm starting to fall behind. I need to have some things in the ground. So I actually wound up going up to a nursery and purchasing some stuff that I would ordinarily just either start by seed directly, but I didn't get my starts, in trays and stuff like that. I didn't do enough of that here, so I wound up just purchasing that stuff. But I've been able to get some peppers in and some cucumbers and planted some peas yesterday and more sunflower. I can't have enough sunflower. I like that stuff to grow everywhere on my property. So yeah, I've been kind of focused on that. What do you say here, Bruce? There's 9 in our house, and well, oh wow, yeah, man. Well, good to see you tonight, nonetheless. I've been begun pulling out of the compost yard, and that's compost that I started making last fall. And I haven't been using it until this time of year, but this time of year, I'm actually starting to amend a lot of the trees that I put in this winter and some of the other spaces that I'm trying to get some things grown. And so I'm starting to pull some of that compost out, which is about anywhere from 7 to 8 months old. And yeah, I've been making some videos on that sort of thing. I just recently posted a video kind of talking about, what we've been doing in the chicken yard with regard to a lot of the worms that we're growing in there, and just kind of showing what's happening in the chicken yard. But I'm also going to be releasing a video talking about, what you kind of need to be looking for, what you can do to build your soil. It's super important that if you're actually somebody who's interested in growing vegetables, to have a basis and a foundation to understand that, it's really coming from the soil that you're developing. So I will be releasing a video here, week after next, that's going to be talking about highlighting some of those important protocols. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, stay tuned. And then I also have a video coming out. I started an experiment about 5-6 months ago, and it was a seed propagation experiment that I did. And I wanted to compare and contrast scarifying seeds versus not scarifying seeds. And so there'll be a video coming out this coming week to show the results of that experiment. And so, yeah. And what else have you been working on around here? You got anything in the
Well, I've
works?
spent some time rendering down a lot of fat.
Mhm.
Some of it is tallow, some of it is lard, and kind of amped up the soap production. So hopefully it'll be back up on the webpage probably by the end of this month, I would say.
Yeah, or sooner. We can probably put it on sooner, but yeah.
And getting ready to can some jams. And I thought that I would be doing some beets. I thought I'd be pickling some beets, but I was
Yeah.
surprised to see that the chickens got them.
Yeah, I let these beets go a little long, and then I didn't. I just wound up feeding that all to the chickens. Sometimes it goes like that. I didn't thin them well enough, so they were very small, and then also too, they were a little bit long in the tooth, and I don't know how they would have canned up and would have eaten. So I'm actually going to be planting some more here shortly. But chickens got a pretty good issue with that. Good evening, Hogs. How you doing, man? What's up? What's up there in NorCal? It is hot, brother. I'm feeling that too, man. Let's see here. Bruce says he started a new pond, left the dam open. Glad I did. It never would have held. Ooh, dude, man, that's a lot of rain. 9 inches in one day. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, man, that you left that open for sure. So
I don't think we've ever seen that much rain.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen 9 inches in a day. No, that's incredible. That is incredible. Yeah, thanks, Hogs, man. We're doing good, man. Life's clicking along here for us really well, and we're just plugging away every day, trying to tick off some of those items that keep coming up year after year, and then all the ones that are like the new items that are coming up. We're getting a little bit closer on our solar project, which I'm really excited and happy about. It's been a long process. We've had to, jump through some hoops and get in the waiting line, getting the, as far as, the time frame for that to happen. But I'm going to be a lot happier once we get that in, because we'll be able to, own a little bit more of our energy. And I think that's an important step for us. So, I just signed some more paperwork on that.
Yeah, I think that was the final
Mhm.
document that we needed to send off, and just wanted to ask some questions about that, make sure we're going in the right direction.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that sound good?
Yeah. We also just upped our egg sales. So we're now selling 7 dozen every week.
That's right. We added another buyer.
Yep. And we've got, what would you say we're getting daily right now with our chickens? We're like 20, you said like 23 to 26 or something
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, it averages anywhere between 23 to 26.
Right.
And I say the 26 is if nothing happens to the eggs. If I personally don't break one while I'm gathering, which happens every now and then.
Sure.
Or we do have a hen who I don't know, she's kind of resistive in using the boxes, and they just drop from the roosting point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's pretty common. Some chickens just like to lay wherever they like to lay, So
Yeah.
it's a little Easter egg hunt out there all the time, but that's the way it goes with chickens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess that's about all we had really kind of on the homestead. Nothing real too groundbreaking. I was able to actually get in and do some work on my garlic and onions, which I was a little bit behind on that as well. And I went in there and weeded all that, started moving that compost in there, and that's going to be kind of the basis for that one soil building video. And so again, if that's something you guys are interested in, check it out in about 2 weeks. Let's jump into the liberal and conservative section of this broadcast. And I will read you a quote from a political figure, and it's up to you to determine, did this come from a person who was liberal or conservative? And then at the end of the broadcast, I'll let you know who actually said this quote. But the quote is, "I think the American people have a generous instinct. They understand that we're a nation of immigrants, but if those folks are going to live in this country, they have to be put on a path to citizenship that involves them paying a fine, making sure that they are at the back of the line and are not cutting in front of people who have applied legally to come into the country." So who would you say, Rebecca, was that a liberal or conservative?
I would say that's a conservative.
Yeah, it could very well be. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see who actually said that. And I'll reveal that here in a little bit. Why do you think it's a conservative?
Not only do I think it's a conservative, I think that that's something that Trump said.
Yeah, I think he probably has said something very similar to that. But is that his quote? I don't know. We'll just have to find out.
Well, I don't know either.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to get right into Q&A. And Bruce says it's a lib from years ago. Could be.
Oh, could be.
Could be. Let's see here. First question says it's a biochar question. And somebody asked, and it was Eve Simpson asked, "Can I make biochar with chemically treated wood? And would it be safe to put it in my garden or give it to my animals?" And my response was, I said, properly made biochar will be devoid of nearly 100% of all the residuals, but there will, however, be some residuals. And one cannot be 100% certain that all the chemical residue has been eliminated. The best practice, in my opinion, is to use feedstock that has not been chemically treated. And another reason to avoid burning treated wood is that the smoke released is going to go up into the atmosphere. It's not really going to be the best for the atmosphere, depending on what chemical treatment that you're actually burning. I said, if it was up to me, I would avoid making char with treated wood, but I know people who do. And good luck, and thanks for the question. And I stand by what I say there. Properly made char, if you're making it kind of in a closed system, you can really remove a lot of the volatiles. It's essentially going to be that blank carbon shell. Even then, though, you're going to have some form of some residuals in there. There will be some ash. There will be some of the volatiles that will still remain. It's very difficult to get all of that stuff completely removed. There will be a minute amount. And based upon that, I wouldn't want to tell somebody, oh, yes, this is fine for you to use, in your garden beds. Fine for you to use, as far as, feeding it to your, for your animals or what have you. So I would say no. There's plenty of other sources that are out there. There's so much free biomass that's out there that you can actually get. But I guess my assumption is that she's probably trying to eliminate this and not haul it to the dump or what have you, and wanting to utilize it as, a resource to make biochar. Personally, I wouldn't do it, but I have plenty of other options where I wouldn't have to. So next question is from Hilltop Blues. And this question came from, I had done kind of a follow-up video to my initial sheep tractor video, because a lot of people have done content about, hey, here's how to build a sheep tractor on YouTube or otherwise. But the one thing that they never really talk about and do as a follow-up is, how do they get water once they're in there? And so I made this video showing what my solution was for the animals that are in there. How am I watering these animals? And essentially what I had done is taken a 60-gallon olive barrel and used that as my reservoir. And I was going to put 2 of these barrels in this trailer. And this trailer is an old tent trailer that I bought for like $300. And it had been sitting here for like 20 years. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll tear this thing apart sometime and use the frame and the trailer for it. Well, I found a use for it in this watering trailer for the sheep tractor. And so it's essentially, again, just a 60-gallon olive barrel. And I've got a 100-foot garden hose running to a little watering trough that's 5 gallons. It's a small watering trough that has a float in it. And so I don't have to do anything, but once this is hooked up, is just move the trailer, maybe once a week or so, depending on the direction of travel of the sheep tractor. And I would say that I probably fill that with the 4 sheep that I have in the tractor. I probably fill that thing, I would say, maybe, depending on the time of year. Obviously it's more in the summertime, they're going to consume more, but I haven't filled that thing twice this winter. It's like, it goes a long way, but the question was from Hilltop Blues. He was asking, and he was concerned, wanted to know, said, can the water get hot in the summertime for the sheep to drink the water? And I just responded back and said, I thought the water might get too hot as well, but surprisingly enough, it doesn't really get much past warm. That was a concern of mine. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put that like little watering trough that's about 5 gallons. It's elevated. So it's connected and it's elevated. So when I move the tractor, it just goes with the tractor. And it's got that float in there, but there's enough water in this thing so that the water will get warm, of course, but it's not going to be scalding hot. I was concerned that, you've got this hose running through the field that's basically just getting all that solar energy put into it. But surprisingly enough, the water stays cool enough. There's enough surface dissipation in that little 5-gallon watering trough. And so that I wanted to just point that out. But again, it's interesting. Not a lot of people have shown what the solution is for your sheep that are in the sheep tractor. Yeah, I agree, Bruce. Yeah, Hogs 14 thinks that was from Ron Paul. Yeah, Ron Paul, man, he's got a lot of great ideas, and he's said a lot of great things over the years. I'm not so certain that's who said that, but that's a good guess, man. And Bruce says, too much clean wood in the world. Yeah, I agree 100%. If you have property, then you're going to have plenty of biomass that just naturally falls to the earth. And it's incredible how much I have here every year. For years, I've always done this huge burn pile at Thanksgiving. That's been kind of just a family tradition. And, I can burn that thing on Thanksgiving, and by the next week, I've already got another burn pile because I'm always cleaning up around here with all the stuff that's either falling out of the trees just naturally or things that I'm pruning and trimming. There's an unlimited supply of biomass on, on land. And so it's a really great thing to do if you can do something with that rather than doing something that's been treated. Because obviously there's a lot of different things that they can treat it with, it used to be that they'd treat it with creosote. There's a lot of, woods that were treated back in the day with creosote, and they don't use that anymore. But I don't know what she's referring to when she was asking about treated wood. So I did not want to say, oh yeah, sure, you can do that. I think that would be pretty irresponsible. Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Thanks. I'll try to keep, some more content coming as it relates to some of the different things I'm doing around here on the biochar realm. And I like sharing that info. So I appreciate you enjoying the content for sure. I do have one more question. And this one is, if I can get it here. Okay. This one is from Farmer Cheryl. And this was from the recent video that I just posted this past Saturday. And she said, great video. Will you be doing a biological analysis of your compost using a microscope like Dr. Elaine Ingham of the Soil Food Web School and performing DNA sequencing? It would be helpful to know the microorganisms in your hot compost pile. And I said this to her in response. I said, yeah, it would be nice to know for certain, but I wouldn't know what I was looking at if I looked at it under a microscope. My approach to composting is the exercise of best practices combined with the application of time. And I base this from what I learned observing my dad and what he did on his farm back in the day. And he had a fantastic garden and incredible yield every year for 45 years until the farm was sold in 2015. Elaine Ingham is a great teacher, soil expert, and someone who I respect as an authority. On the other hand, I am a lifelong amateur soil builder and gardener, content to derive my results from empirical rather than scientific evidence. I really appreciate the question, and I'm glad you enjoyed the video. Thank you. And I really I like the question quite a bit because it is something that I've thought of, but it's nothing that I think is in my interest to try to go down the road of looking at compost that I've made to see what is actually in it. And that's something that I've spoken about at different times with regard to composting. And that's why I take the approach that I do with my composting. I've made the comment that most people who compost really have no idea what they've actually made. And that's true. Because sure, it smells really good. It might smell super good and it might look dark and it might look like, hey, this is compostable. Doesn't have anything harmful in it. But the reality is you don't know what is in it. The average person doesn't, and the average person doesn't have the time, nor the energy, nor the effort, nor the know-how to sit there and put compost underneath a microscope and try to act like you're some kind of a soil scientist. I don't want to do that. All I want to do is grow some vegetables. And most people, all they want to do is grow some vegetables. So I appreciate the question, but in reality, that isn't something that I'm going to actually pursue because it doesn't make any sense for me to try to act like I'm some expert soil analysis. People go to school for that for years to learn how to do that sort of thing. And I'll leave it up to them to analyze soil in that regard. I just think the average person needs to look at things practically from the standpoint of what's going to work best for them. If you have an interest in doing that, by all means, go out and take a class and learn all the things that you can look at underneath a microscope. I have no desire to do that. And I wanted to be able to try to convey that to her in a respectful manner, just saying, hey, this is how I prefer to do it. I think the majority of people, that's what their interest is just growing some vegetables. They could give two shits about, is this a nematode, or is this an arthropod, or is this, what am I looking at underneath the microscope? But sure, it'd be interesting, but it's not going to do anything to grow your vegetables. So
that would require some patience.
Yeah, it would require patience, but again, it also requires time, right? I've got a ton of things to do. And as most people do, they have a ton of things to do. So what I'm trying to get across here is that you don't need to do that if you're patient. If you follow what nature is trying to do, which is take its time, sure, you can go out and make compost in 18 days. A lot of people have showed you how to do that on YouTube. But the reality is that unless you get your shit just real right, you don't know what you've made. And that's the truth. You can't say what's in that compost. Sure, it looks good, it smells good. And so maybe you want to learn how to look at it underneath the microscope so you can determine that. That would be completely fine. I just think that the majority of people, including myself, don't have an interest in doing that. And so that's kind of what I wanted to try to convey in this. What's up, London? How are you? Trevor, how are you? Yeah. Thank you. So that's all I had for Q&A, and we are going to move into the weekly poll. And these were some, I guess, thorny issues. These are some issues that people traditionally either choose a side on, and a lot of these issues are used as wedge issues to drive people apart. And so that's why I put them in there, because they are certainly going to be something that we will see again this coming election season. And the issues were the economy. Well, the question was which one of these issues would motivate you to vote in 2024? Which would get you interested in going to the poll? What's your key issue? Which is the thing that matters to you most? And some of the people actually responded and said that all of these things were something that would motivate them to go. And I fully appreciate that. I understand why people would be motivated by all of these, because I think they are all very important issues, all things that affect us in one way or another. And so, I picked a couple that were traditionally conservative and a couple that were traditionally something that aligns more so with people who are on the left side of the aisle. So the issues were the economy, illegal immigration, Roe versus Wade, healthcare, and the Second Amendment. And so of those issues, Rebecca, which one would motivate you to get to the poll the most? Which one is most concerning to you? Is most of an issue that would be of interest?
For me, I guess I would have to say illegal immigration. I really don't think that they should be pouring in. We've got so many people that have come here correctly and are happy to be here and to support this country, that I just don't feel that we should have tons and tons of people just flooding in and doing whatever.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. And interestingly enough, I think a lot of people agreed with that sentiment. So out of the 151 votes, the thing that was the least concerning for people was healthcare. And I guess if the people that listen to this broadcast were more aligned with left-wing politics, that may have a different result as coming from somebody who's liberal. But 7% of people said that healthcare was an issue. The next, another liberal hot button issue, is Roe versus Wade, abortion. And 9% of people thought that might motivate them to get to the polls. And then we jump up to the Second Amendment. So 20% of the people thought that would be something that would motivate them to get to the polls, which leaves the remaining two, the economy and illegal immigration. Coming in at the second spot was the economy with 30%. And then garnering the top spot was illegal immigration, 34%. I actually agree 100% with the outcome of this poll. I would have chosen, if I had one issue to get me to the polls, it would have been illegal immigration, because I think that issue is something that is going to have much more long lasting effects than the economy. Unless the economy completely craters and never comes back under a different administration, the economy seems to ebb and flow. I mean, we have periods of, this and that. And obviously the deficit has never been more out of control than it is today. So obviously the economy is a big, big issue for a lot of people, including myself. But illegal immigration is, if we don't have laws that are enforced in this country and we have people just pouring across our borders, that's something that I think over time is going to have an effect that people have not fully been able to realize at this point. It's a bell that has been rung that's going to be very hard to unring. And so I agree with Rebecca. I agree with everybody who chose that as their number one. I would have chosen the same thing. Old McDonald chiming in. Love it, man. What do you got? Without 2A, all the rest won't matter. Anyways, because they will force whatever agenda they wish upon us with zero resistance. That's true, man. I mean, I agree with you. I think 2A is extremely important. But I also think that that's something that in the future, it's going to be under assault. And it's going to be hard for them to take the guns away from people. So they can impose, hey, you can't have weapons. But guess what? Guess who's going to have weapons? The people that want to have weapons, right? So yeah, you're not going to have your ability to maybe have your CCW or your open carry permit or whatever, because you'll be arrested on the spot. But guess who's not giving up their guns? Americans. So 2A is important. I agree with you 100%. But I also think too that this immigration thing, man, is out of control. And we are either a nation of laws or we're not. 2A is just there's just a privilege. It's not even a right. It's just something that they can always chip away at and take away from us. And they're going to continue to do that. They're going to continue to make it harder and harder for Americans to own weaponry and to arm themselves and defend themselves. But I think that people are going to not comply with that right off the bat. Over time, I think that they'll probably have some success, and that's the unfortunate part. That's where we need to be the ones who are teaching the next generation and letting them know this is how things are. It's not them running things. They work for us. And that's just I don't know. That's my feeling on that deal. But I agree with you. 2A is super important, man. All of these are super important issues in one respect or another.
I agree. And I just think that people are going to have weapons regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's not, they're going to figure out how to make them out of anything and everything they can.
Yeah. Well, the sad part is that there'll be a lot of people who will give their shit away. They'll give their guns right back. But yeah, I agree. It's all very important. All of the so-called rights we have, First Amendment, Second Amendment, all the amendments, they're all super important that we keep that sort of thing restored. But yeah, I still stand with what I say as far as the illegal immigration. That's gonna be a big one, because if we just keep having millions of people that have no rights to be here and no understanding of what it means to be an American and have these rights, you're gonna have the need for your 2A a lot more than you do now. So, agreed, though.
Yeah, I think they're just asking for trouble. doing what they're doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why they're doing it other than what people have speculated about the vote and muddying the waters and getting, more people in these districts so that they can redraw their apportionment and all of those sort of things. I think that's a part of it. It clearly can't be, out of the care for these people that they want the best for them. There's something in it for them, and that remains to be seen. But yeah, let's jump into the did you know portion of tonight's broadcast.
Oh. So did you know? As it turns out, many of our founding fathers were younger than 40 years of age in 1776. Several even qualified as founding teenagers or 20-somethings. Although average age of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were 44, more than a dozen of them were younger than 35 or were 35 or younger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy if you think about it. I think like James Madison or one of those dudes was like 20, and you contrast that with today, because the 118th Congress that was brought in 2023, the average age of the House of Representatives was 57.9, and the average age, this is average age, was 64, with many of them in their 80s. And I don't know, if you guys, I'm sure you probably do know, but maybe they don't know that your mental acuity tends to decline as you age. And so, most people, when they get to that age, 64, are thinking about retirement. I don't know. I certainly don't want people that are going to be operating on me or doing things that are really like require a certain level of intellect. Maybe I wouldn't want somebody who's arguing on my behalf if they're defending me in a legal matter. So I don't know. It's interesting that we've got the people that actually came up with our whole system were average age 44, and our average age now is everybody's retirement age.
One of the things that it's a doctor here that actually did surgery on my hands. He had came up to me the last time I had an appointment with me and let me know that he was retiring. And I really appreciated this. He said, I have Parkinson's and nobody needs to tell me when it's time to retire.
Yeah.
And that's the way I think our government should.
Yeah. 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 It's not a job though. I mean, who wants to work beyond their years? People that have positions that aren't really jobs. Those aren't jobs. They're basically like, they have all of the things afforded to them. They don't have to pay for anything. They can use the government's credit cards to go out and do things. They've got offices in different places, and everything's covered for them. So of course, why would you want to actually retire? But yet there are people in there that are 60, 70, and 80 years old and is running our government. And it just kind of speaks to maybe like a broken system, I think. So yeah, I appreciated that. That did you know?
Thank you.
Yeah. On the fence regarding Roe versus Wade, aborting the fetus is still going on. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not on the fence personally. I think that, it shouldn't be something that we allow and sanction. And I think that the Supreme Court argued and made a decision that was appropriate in the last time that this came up, where they basically put it back to the states, because I don't think that the federal government should be sanctioning, aborting human life. I don't agree with that.
And especially the late term abortions.
Yeah, it's just sickening. But let's see here. Dianne Feinstein, she's dead now, huh? She was being rolled out at the end with somebody practically, Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. That is true. And it's sad, man. I mean, to see that's elder abuse. She looked terrible. She looked like a corpse and just all pale and just like no
And there's
expression on her
somebody else
face.
there that looks like that too.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Dementia has become a prerequisite for becoming president of the United States. Yeah, that's really interesting, man. I don't know. I'm thinking about this whole scenario, why they would run this dude again, because of, I mean, he's done a really horrible job. And I think it's pretty hard for people even on the side that voted for him to say that he's doing a great job still. Even, I mean, they can try to spin it, but the reality is that people are not doing as well as they were not too long ago. And so you can say all the things you want, but the reality is that things are a fucking mess in this country, and it's a mess around the world. And so it's really interesting to think that they would run him again. And I think it's only because he is so malleable and is so agreeable to the things that they are trying to push. He's not really running much. He's just reading off of a teleprompter poorly.
Extremely poorly.
Right. And all these things are being put on his desk for him to sign, and he's going along with it. So, that's why they want him there. And I can only assume that they're actually running him because they feel very confident of the outcome. But nobody's showing up for this dude, man. He's not a big draw, so to speak, right? Trump had this rally the other day. I saw it, and it was interesting because it was in New Jersey, a blue state, and they say that there was like 80,000 people there. I saw the pictures on TikTok, and it was pretty crazy. There was a lot of people who showed up for this thing. And the first thing that came to my mind wasn't just like, oh, hey, look, all these people there. I'm thinking, how many feds were in the crowd? And why? How do they vet? Here's the other question that I had. How do you vet 80,000 people to make sure nobody's, the wrong person there? And so I'm not going to like go further on this hypothesis, but just think about that for a minute. 80,000 people. How do you get everybody like?
You can't. You can't. You
It's
absolutely
going to be
cannot.
very difficult to make sure somebody in that crowd isn't the wrong person, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't know. I a lot of people like the dude. I don't know. I hope things don't get kind of out of control here, because it's election season is heating up, guys. We got an important issues, Roe versus Wade and the economy and all those things that people are going to be pulling the lever for. So we just need to make sure that those Dominion voting machines, as London pointed out, aren't going to cause a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we at here? Okay. Well, I guess we're going to move on to the main topic. And tonight's main topic is, it's the decline of the American male. And I looked this up. So you can go and you can type in on your computer, just type in the search engine of your choice, type in the decline of the American, and then let your computer auto-populate for you what it's going to bring up in the search. And the first thing that came up was empire. So the decline of the American empire was the first thing. And then the very next thing that came up was the decline of the American male. But on the other hand, if you were to type in the rise of the American, you're not going to see empire or male. And, there's a lot of people who've talked about this thing before, the decline of the American male. And a lot of articles, a lot of pundits, a lot of people out there talking about this sort of thing. And I wonder if it's merely just a way to make you think that we're in this decline, or we are actually in a decline. But if I had to guess, just as a non-academic, as somebody who's just weighing in, I think that we're in a decline of both the American empire and a decline of the American male. And so why do I say that? It's because of what I see with my own eyes. You know, Rebecca and I both personally have people that are close to us who are experiencing some of the problems associated with many young males in this country. And I suppose, you know, we can get to that in a minute. But first, I just wanted to give you some perspective on my opinion of what it means to be a man. And I would say, despite the efforts of a lot of people to blur the lines between what the genders are and their differences, I don't think that it's wrong to say that men and women are distinctly different. You know, we have different roles in society, we have different roles in our relationships. And this isn't just like my opinion. I think that there's historically, it's just a fact. Men are physically larger than men, generally speaking, right? This is a generality. And being larger in stature and having more strength, they're naturally going to be more aligned with roles that are like being the provider, being the hunter. And women, being smaller in stature and having less physical strength, generally speaking, are more well suited for being gatherers and nurturers. I mean, we're taking this way back, right? We're not talking about some woke 2024 version of what a man is, but from the standpoint of the origins of man. And I don't think things really have changed in that respect, or they shouldn't have. And what I'm going to say is purely just an opinion. I don't have scientific evidence to back any of this up. But I find that women, generally speaking, are much more analytical, much more thoughtful, much more caring. And men tend to be much more absolute, much more matter of fact, much more impulsive. And I suppose I'm making that assumption based on that's kind of how I am and that's kind of how she is. But I don't think that's too far off the rails when it comes to a generality of the differences between man and women. You know, what I interpret from those differences is that I think that we as men, and again, this is a generality, maybe dudes are a lot more complex than I am, but I'm a pretty simple guy. I don't need a lot to make me happy. But one thing that, well, that's true. That's true.
Food.
Food, right? You know the staples, right? But I think generally speaking, men and women both have the same needs in a reality. We all need a sense of purpose, and we all need to feel as though we're wanted and needed. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, to manhood was the women's liberation movement, because that directly goes to challenging the need for men to exist, in a sense. I became aware of women's lib movement when I was a kid, back in the 70s. Women were out burning their bras and all of those sort of things. And it was a time when I think a lot more women were entering the workforce. And you had the two-income households, which in a sense signals to the man that you're not needed. You're not the primary provider. I think the women's liberation movement actually began a lot earlier than that, because some of you might have, if you go back a few episodes, I've spoken about this before, but there was a gentleman named Edward Bernays, and he was essentially the father of propaganda, and he was Sigmund Freud's nephew, and he liked to rebrand himself because he knew that propaganda was a bad term. It was associated with the Nazis and Joseph Goebbels and all of that sort of thing. So he rebranded himself as the father of public relations, and that's where public relations started, was with him. And there was a movement. It was brought upon because tobacco companies, or a specific tobacco company, was having problems selling their product. And so they reached out to Edward Bernays. Hey, we'd like to see if we can up our tobacco sales. Can you help us out? And so he had the idea that, hey, we can get women to smoke. These liberated women, we can put a cigarette in their hand and we'll call it Torches of Freedom. And so that's kind of where this whole liberated thing started, but it's been progressing throughout the years. And yeah, I think that what's noteworthy about any of this, guys, is that I don't think the women's liberation movement generally challenges alpha males. I don't think alphas are threatened by the women's liberation movement because they know what they need, they know what they want, they know what their role is in society. But it definitely challenges, I think, the beta males because it sends a confusing message to them. And you might say that that's not a real big deal because you're just separating the wheat from the chaff. You're taking those betas out of the gene pool, and that's probably a good thing. But the problem is that now you've got hundreds of thousands of young men who are outside of the gene pool, and they're lost and they don't know what to do. And I think that's a big part of it. I could be off base with that, but that's just my general sense as to men need to have that feeling of knowing where their place is and what their role is. And I think that women need that as well. We all need that sense of purpose. And so when you kind of strip some of that away by saying you're not needed, in a sense, then yeah, what do you think, Rebecca?
Well, as people know, I'm a little bit older than Eric, so we're kind of from different. I'm at the end of the dad goes off to work, mom stays at home and takes care of the kids and is a homemaker, where Eric just starts into the both parents are working and the kids come home. I would say he's sort of a part of the latchkey movement.
Totally.
Come home to an empty house.
Totally.
I came home to a mom who was there to do everything. She cooked and cleaned and did everything. And saying that, when the dad goes off to work, he comes home with a paycheck. Even though the mom stays home and she's doing a lot of work, I think the importance gets lost because there's a stigmatism tied to the paycheck. And when you're home and you're taking care of everything, it's kind of like a thankless job.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go. Just go ahead.
Oh, and so, it's nice. Like in our family, our kids have been raised to actually kind of carry on the older traditions. And our daughter is very into cooking and homeschooling the kids and everything else. And that's really nice to know. And it's nice to reinforce her that what she's doing is just as important as what the man is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, unfortunately, I think that is kind of what society, at large has said to women that decide to stay home or in that role. And I can fully appreciate how a woman might feel that way. I can appreciate how they might feel like, hey, I'm trapped in this situation where, I'm not contributing enough or what have you. But I don't think that it should be something that women should feel that they need to go out and to work as a safety net because they're, trapped in this relationship. I think says more about the relationship that they're in rather than the situation that, it's two distinctly different roles in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right?
We're definitely designed different.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, you cannot bear children, and there are tasks and that you do outside and the male role that I personally cannot do.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Not getting any other. What's going on here with these comments or whatever? Let's see here. Let me see what London has to say. He says, in Southern California, I saw a lot of evidence of the decline: skinny jeans, hair bun, makeup, etc. I rarely see that kind of guy in Oklahoma. Less weirdness here. Yeah, it's a cultural thing, and we all learn from one another, and the power of suggestion is very, very important. And so it's very important that we instill that into our children. Um, it is weird that things have gone that direction, but it's just a progression of our society. Maybe you can call it even a decline of our society with some of the things that people are thinking is, I guess, okay to do. And I don't know. It's interesting. I agree with you that I see a lot of that sort of thing too. I mean, I live in a state that sort of thing is more prevalent and more widely accepted. Old McDonald says that he's got his comments being banned. YouTube is banning my comments left and right. YouTube is banning my comments, saying YouTube is banning my comments. Let's see here. Apparently, I can't talk about 2A, censorship, and New World Order. Getting really tired of this platform. So they are censoring you tonight as far as what you plan on like typing and whatnot. Yeah, I'm unaware of that. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. Like this whole free speech and everything. I mean, I don't think that free speech really exists because there's going to be a repercussion from the things you say, repercussion from the things that you do. So therefore, it is truly not free. You could make the argument that free speech exists in China or North Korea. It certainly does. You can say whatever you want to say, but guess what? What's going to happen? You're going to have repercussion. And so there's going to be repercussion when you say certain things here. You can't just walk up to anybody and say anything. You can, but guess what? There's going to be repercussion. And so the only time that you really truly have free speech is when you're by yourself speaking to yourself. Because if you say something to somebody else, there's going to be a judgment based on that, and there will be repercussion. So I don't know. Free speech is an interesting thing to me. We can say what we want to say, but there's always going to be an end result. And as far as this platform, there's things that they say that you can't say. And I think that, we have to be able to respect that, right? They've got the rules. It's their house. If I came into your house and I said certain things, you'd be like, get out of my house. It's just the way that it is. So, let's see here. It says, additionally, I will never understand why it's okay for males to compete against females on any level. And I don't know.
I don't think they're comparable. I mean,
well, what are we talking about competition? Are we talking about sports? Are we talking about in the workplace? I think that women should have the ability to go out and to work and if they want to enter the workforce. I'm not saying that women shouldn't have the ability to go out and excel. They're actually kicking men's ass right now in college. They're far exceeding what men are doing in college. And that's another reason why a lot of dudes are kind of like they're giving up because they're just being out competed, and I think that's a problem for that man who's probably a beta. An alpha is going to be like, yeah, I'll compete with you. He's not going to run and turn and hide. So I think women should have the ability to compete with us. But as far as from like things that like sports and gender roles and stuff like that. Right? What do you think?
Right. So London said sports.
Oh, okay.
And I agree.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
it's ridiculous. A woman would never win whatever they were in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just a silly argument. But again, that's more of those confusing messages that are being given to society. And some people are really taking that to heart, I think. I think some young men, some boys that are entering manhood, I think that they look at that sort of thing and they just don't know what their place is. And that's part of the problem. Old McDonald says, yes, they've banned a comment I made directly toward leather, and on other channels, my comments have been getting banned left and right. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting, man. I don't receive that kind of thing. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't comment enough, or maybe what I'm saying isn't being like taken down or whatever. But interesting. What's this right here? The swimmer Thomas takes a collegiate title against top-notch women athletes. Total bullshit. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
since I'm a swimmer, I'm gonna agree with that one.
Yeah, it's super not okay, man. I mean, that just is like, it's just not right. Let's see here. Individuals should have complete control over their companies that they own, but this social engineering is anti-American and is getting out of control. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, man. The thing that I have a problem with is the fact that these corporations, right? YouTube, which is a part of Google and all of that, it's all part of the government. They're in bed with one another. There's funding going back and forth. I mean, Google Maps and all of this stuff was funded from the government. Their programs started by the government. So there's this level of cooperation that nobody really can compete with. There's not any other startups that are going to come and be this entity, because these entities have a monopoly on the platforms, the where people meet. This is where people meet. They go to places like YouTube. They go to places like, Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of thing, and TikTok. And so again, that's why TikTok is being so targeted, because of the ownership in TikTok and their inability to control that platform and the things that people say on that platform nearly as intensely. And so, when you look at the big picture, you realize that it's just not free speech. And, you should never delude yourself in thinking that, we're going to have the ability to speak freely on these platforms without that sort of, that level of control. It's just not going to happen. They're always going to win, man. I mean, again, go back to that thing where I was talking about Parler and what happened there. Just never forget that. Never forget what they did to Parler. And they're going to continue to do that. So, yeah, I speak freely for now on Rumble. Well, see here, the reason why you're speaking freely on Rumble is because nobody's on Rumble. That's just the fucking truth, man. There's nobody on Rumble. There's people, I got an account over there. There's people that are on Rumble or whatever. But Rumble's not a thing. If Rumble was a thing, guess what? They'd come after Rumble. Just the reality, man. Nobody's there. So, I think another large contributing factor to the decline is partially due to what a lot of parents have done for their children. And I can say that I've bought into this idea that, hey, I want things to be, I want my children to have a better life than I did. I want them to have, things a little easier so they don't have to struggle as much, right? I think most parents think that that's our job, to kind of make things a little bit better for our children. But, in doing so, if we take that in the wrong direction, I think that sort of mentality makes an entire generation that over time gets softer and softer. Because immigrants, when they come here from other countries, they flourish. Why is that? Why do they far out exceed the people that are actually born here? Why did they come here and are able to turn that into some kind of a benefit? Whereas people here, a lot of them, and I'm speaking as a generality here, guys. I mean, obviously there's people here who are kicking ass, people native born that are just crushing it. But we have a lot of people that have a lot of opportunity being born here, and they don't take advantage of that when other people come here, and they do.
It's because they're expected to, or they expect everything to be handed to them.
Yeah, yeah. I think that they've come from a place where they realize the opportunities that exist once they get here. They go, man, I can actually turn something into something really, good in this country. And that's why people are coming here. I get it why they want to be here. But if you want to like actually develop something, you have to actually tear it down. You have to actually work it like your muscles, right? If you build your muscles, you have to first tear that muscle down and then for it to get stronger. And it's the same type of thing if you're building a business, right? There's several things you're going to have to do in order to become successful, and you're going to have failures along the way until you find that right thing. And that's what teaches you to be successful in the future. And if all we ever do is tell our children, it's going to be easy for you, if you create a soft landing for your children, then you're going to be raising an entire generation of soft children. And so when you combine that with all the other mixed messages that young kids are getting, particularly young men or young boys, how do you expect them to grow up to be men?
Well, they need to have the role models. First starts at home.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't get that and they're going to school and what's being taught at school, that's what they're following.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. You guys probably can recall this because I think it's evolved from the whole everyone gets a trophy movement. Instead of like, the people that actually win, the baseball team, the t-ball team that actually wins, everybody gets a trophy, and it's graduated into projecting upon boys that if they're behaving like boys, then they're somehow like misogynistic, or they've been infected with toxic masculinity. And Rebecca and I were talking about this the other day, and she reminded me of an incident when our son was in school. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but
yeah, our son was in 6th grade, and I got a call from his teacher, and she was telling me that I needed to take him to the doctor because she just knew he had ADHD because he was just moving around too much. And I said, well, moving around, is he shifting in his seat, or is he physically getting up and moving around the classroom? I said, because if he's just moving around in his seat, he doesn't have ADHD. And I said, and if you think he's not paying attention to you, then the next time you say something, turn around and you ask him, what is it that you just said? I never heard from the lady ever again. Because I told her I knew that he would be able to repeat everything back word for word.
Didn't you say he was teaching the class or something too?
Well, that was in high school. That was a whole nother, he was in geometry. And I'm sure you guys know in the classrooms, there's telephones that the teachers will get a call from the office or something. Anyway, telephone rang in high school in his geometry class. Our son is bold enough to tell the teacher to go ahead and take the call. He'll teach the class. And so she took that challenge, and she went and answered the call, and she told him to go ahead and teach the class. And he got up, and she was livid when she got off the phone because they understood him better than her. She actually failed him. He got a D in geometry and had to take it all over again.
Yeah, that's not right. That is not right, man. Hold on a second. Well, let me get caught up with these questions real quick, guys. Let me see here. Yep, I agree, Bruce. says soft young men need hard men to thicken their skin and toughen them up. That's where they're going to learn it. That's where they're absolutely going to learn it, is by those role models.
And one of the soft and the hard men is usually, you can tell from the handshake.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's, when a dude shakes your hand and he's got that limp wrist, or not even a limp wrist, but just a soft handshake, to me, that's the first thing that I notice. And it says a lot about that person to me that I don't really know. That's my first introduction. And a firm handshake means quite a bit in my book. And so maybe some people weren't raised that way, or they don't think that means something, but that's the first impression that matters as a man to me. Yeah, I think this decline has been trending over a lot of years and throughout many generations, but it seems like to me that things have accelerated, and maybe that's just because I've become more keenly aware as I age. I think that one interesting contrast to pay attention to is to take a look at the faces of the men from around the turn of the century and on up through the Depression era. And it's like they didn't have any question as to what their role was. Their role was to put food on the table and to, provide for their family. And they do anything to get that job and to keep that job. Young boys at the time were, standing alongside men, and it was not uncommon. My dad had decided to enter the workforce at age 13, and it wasn't really it wasn't really a choice. It was just kind of a necessity, and that's how he was raised. And he only had an 8th grade education, and yet built his life successfully in a country that provided that opportunity to him. Whereas today you have young boys who should be entering manhood, but are more confused than ever about what their role is in society. And I think all of those things that I was just talking about, all of those mixed messages that they're getting, it's all part of it. And I think society continues to blur the lines on all the things that, traditionally were reserved for women. So, for example, one suggestion is that men should be getting things that women used to get, right? From the standpoint of grooming, going out and getting manis and petties and getting waxed and manscaped. That's a term now, getting manscaped, and going to spas for treatment. And I don't think women want that sort of thing. I don't think women want that sort of man. And so, Rebecca, I know you don't speak for all women, but as a man who happens to be so hyper-focused on his own appearance and going to be standing in front of the mirror competing with you for mirror time, is that something you look for in a man?
Absolutely not. I've got girlfriends to do that for me. And
well, what do you look for in a man? What?
I personally, I prefer the more masculine man that's able to provide and do repairs and be the worker bee, I guess. I don't know exactly how to.
Well,
that's not exactly the right way, but to do the man jobs.
Right. Well, that's called being a provider, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so, I guess that's what I meant by the worker bee, is being the provider.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of different arrangements and relationships and whatnot. And again, I'm not here to disparage anybody's, marital situation or anything like that. I mean, we started out, she was working professionally, I was working professionally. It just so worked out that we were able to have her work within the home. She was able to quit her state job and come and work within the home. And that was a big, that was a big win for our family, because she was able to be here for our children. And I think that that's very important. Not every family has that. I understand that. I'm not sitting here trying to cast stones in a glass house, but I am saying that it certainly benefits children to have that role model and to have that structure in a traditional format. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say from that. So I don't want people to get the idea that I'm sitting here saying, "Oh, women shouldn't work and women should be, in the home or whatnot." But I do think that it's okay that when women decide to stay home, as Rebecca was saying, that
Well,
should be celebrated, man. That's one of the hardest fucking jobs there is.
I had the opportunity to actually experience both, where I went out and I worked, and I also got to be a stay-at-home mom. The kids were a little bit older, but in doing both of them, I honestly have to say it's much easier to go to work.
Yeah.
Being at home and being a stay-at-home mom is much harder than getting in your car and going to a job.
Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Loco? How are you doing, man? Good to see you, man. Hope things
Hello.
are well. I got to get prone. we are never going to solve any of this, Bruce, but I appreciate you coming and hanging out with us tonight. And as always, hope things are well with you and yours. So good evening, my friend.
Yeah.
We're solving the world's problems. Oh, cool. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Right on. If somebody tries to fist bump, I make sure they feel it and think twice about it. Firm shake and eye contact. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, nobody is having these
hand
hard
movement like this, where they reach in and take your hand. That from a male is just a complete turn off.
Oh yeah. There's some dudes, man, when they shake your hand and it's just like a wet thing, like a fish, I'm just like, what the heck? Come on, dude. You can do better than that. Yeah, that leaves an impression. I'll tell you that. It leaves an impression on me. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think some men are really falling prey to the idea that that's what women want, is some dude that's all, feminized. And maybe there are some women who actually really like that on dudes. But I think what's, really going on is, they're kind of falling prey to like a marketing scheme. And it's a way to double the revenue, just like Edward Bernays did with the Torches of Freedom campaign. Because now they have more feminine hair care products and all this foo-foo stuff they can sell to not only women, but they can sell it to men. So there's an element of doubling the revenue.
And blurring the lines, definitely blurring the lines.
Yes. Yeah, that's the bigger message. And it's partly being sold to people as things that they don't actually need. But it's also to bring the differences between the genders closer together. So as you just said, blur those lines. Let me see something here. I think I saw something here from Old McDonald. He said, teachers told my parents I needed ADH meds also. Luckily, my parents told them to go fly a kite. Yeah, I think parents need to, be their advocate for their kids, because I don't think that's the place of a teacher to even say such a thing. That's not their role. Their role is to teach. It's not there to diagnose and to try to, prescribe medications or make that suggestion. You just tell the parent, hey man, this is what your kid's doing. But, to sit there and say, oh, he's got ADHD and he needs meds. I mean, that's outside of your pay grade, man.
Well, on top of that, if they're just shifting around in their seat, boys have a lot of energy, and sitting still for a long period of time is difficult to do.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that you have some illness or need medication for it.
Yeah. Yeah. The educational system is where they attacked us the most. And that's the perfect place, man. That's the perfect venue, because you have a captive audience of people of young people who are very impressionable, and they look at teachers as authority. And so they're going to get that influence from the educational system. And it's a perfect tool. It's a perfect platform for people that want to push an agenda. And, I never saw that when I was in it, honestly. I never really saw it being much of an issue, quite honestly, when our children were in public school. But now that I'm older and I can kind of step back and I can see the changes that have occurred in the system and the things that they're actually pushing, they didn't push that kind of thing when I was in school. And I don't think they were pushing it to the extent that they are now when our children were in school. And so I'm very grateful that they're no longer in school. However, there is the next generation. And so, yeah, again, it is a perfect platform for people to be indoctrinated and to, be given the information that the establishment wants them to have.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Loco says, my sister in Bakersfield spent the weekend with her church community on a bug out off-grid weekend at a 100-acre ranch in order prepping for escaping the urban madness. Huh.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of what people need to do, is to get out there and to engage with people. It's super important. It's super important.
That's one of the things that's lacking, is kids learning how to socialize and interact with other people, not just kids their age, but adults and even smaller children.
Right.
They're just losing their social skills, period.
Well, so the question for you, Rebecca, is how do confused young men combat all these mixed messages?
Well, again, I would say that starts from home, starts with the parents,
Mm-hmm.
educating their child on what is important,
Mm-hmm.
or at least what the parent feels is important, because it is the parent's child. And then getting them maybe involved in activities that kind of foster those thoughts and process. And then, like I said earlier, I feel that our daughter homeschools her kids, and that is awesome because she's projecting the what she wants them to learn, as opposed to somebody else putting out their ideas in your kid's head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. I don't know. I think the number one factor that can combat all these mixed messages is just having a strong, strong father in your life. And that's going to be what really lets you know what it means to be a man, right? That's where kids learn everything, is from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts in the home. And, problem, in my opinion, goes back to the 2-income household, where children essentially became, as I did, a latchkey kid, spending a lot of time away from the parents, not getting to see the interaction between the husband and the wife and the mom and the dad, and instead getting those influences from other adults that may not be the best version of what a man or a woman is. And so, there was a guy who's done a lot of research and study, and he's written books on it. This whole issue of the decline of the American male, and the problems that young boys entering manhood are having. And he's been on a lot of different podcasts and things like that. His name's Scott Galloway. He's a professor, and he's got a really simple, like three-part solution. And it starts with evaluating basically the person's screen time, because I think we can all get back some time from our screens. We can all get back time from social media. particularly the young people, they're on, all these different apps, TikTok, Twitch, Facebook, you name it, Instagram, all these different platforms. And they're spending an inordinate amount of time on these devices and, on these platforms. And so that's the first place he says is, hey, let's go look and see where your screen time is. And then let's get 10 hours back, and then take that 10 hours and apply it to these three things. And the first thing is going out and getting physically fit. And that's such an important thing, because there's so many people in today's society that are not physically fit. They're not keeping themselves in good shape. And particularly if you're a young person, you're never going to be as strong as you were when you're 19 to 23. The amount of testosterone that a young man has at that time of year, or at that time in their life, is incredible. The strength that I had when I was 20, as opposed to the strength that I have now. I mean, I think we can all realize the change that has happened there. And so that's what he says to these young people is, get out and to do something to physically improve yourself, whether that be lift weights or improve your endurance. But that's the first place that you're going to go, because if you want to meet somebody, if you want to meet a woman, if you want to meet a mate, it's important for that mate to feel like the person that they're getting is somebody who's physically capable, right? They don't want some person that can't even get out of their own way. They don't want some big bodybuilder, but they want somebody who's physically capable as a protector
and a provider,
and a provider, somebody that has that level of skill. So that's the first place that people need to start. And then the next place that people need to start is going out and getting a taste for the flesh of money, seeing what money tastes like, get a job. And so spend time going out and physically getting a job, because you know what? Again, that's something that's attractive to somebody of the opposite sex. Women will tell you, oh, I'm not, into this relationship for, money or what have you, but you're in it for something. And one of those somethings is having somebody who can provide for you and is going to protect you. And one of the ways that you provide is by actually making some money. So go out and get a job, learn how to earn an income, right? That's a good place to start. Okay. And then the last thing that this guy says to go out and do is to go out and actually meet people. Physically get out of your comfort zone and put yourself in the presence of other human beings. And, that's one of the reasons why I choose to go to these conferences in these different places, that I get to meet people from this community. And I'll drive across the country so that I have that opportunity, because I think that it's very important to close the loop on relationships that you establish online, take it to the next level. But for young people particularly, go out and meet people. Don't lock yourself in your room and sit up there on the internet looking at God knows what.
I think that's one of the hardest things is now for our younger kids, is to actually go out and meet people, because they've lost that skill.
Many have. There's still a lot of people that are squared away, and that they've had those good influences, and they understand their role, and they are driven, and that they, they're focused on what reality is. But there's so many people that just they've lost that, because of all of these mixed messages and all of the influences that they get in today's society. And the more that gets progressed to the next generation, you're going to have Gen Z who doesn't know any of these skills, raising the next generation. Think about that. And so if they're not getting it at some level, where are they going to get that?
Yeah, I know I've said this to you before. At one of the coffee shops, there was a young man that started working there, and he could hardly make eye contact with you. He had no social skills at all. But over, I would say about a month span or whatnot, it was kind of nice to see him gradually change to where, he could actually look at you and speak to you. And
Yeah.
Those are the type of thing. I'm not saying that they need to work at a coffee shop, but that's the type of thing that they need to do, and that's taking them out of their comfort zone and kind of forcing them to take that extra step.
Yeah, get a job in the service industry. Go wait on assholes. Go because people are kind of jerks, man. Sometimes to people that are in that service industry, it really bothers me when I go to a restaurant and I see some person that's being rude to a waiter or something like that, and trying to act all important and that's just they shouldn't have to deal with that. But that kind of dealing with people like that kind of really helps you with your life skills. So go get a job of some kind. I think those are really important tips that guy had, and I think that if more young people were to understand that, adhere to that, then that would change a lot for a lot of the people that are having problems, I would think. Yeah, I'm kind of glad to hear that as well, London. He says that glad to hear your daughter's homeschools, public schools are indoctrination sites. Yeah, I agree, man. It just wasn't that way back in the day. I mean, maybe it was, and I just didn't see it, or maybe it's really progressed quite a bit since I've, been able to step back and look at it. But yeah, it's definitely we're happy about that as well.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much time that is saved because they go in, they do their schoolwork, and where you're at school for what, 8 hours,
Yeah,
their schoolwork is done in like a couple hours, and then they get to go out and play.
Yeah. Yeah. The masked media, hidden and subliminal messaging ruining our lives. Yeah, there's so much that's out there that it's all propaganda. Go and look and see what propaganda is and all the different ways that they manipulate people to get them to buy things that they don't really actually need. That's all propaganda. That's all part of being manipulated. And that was part of Edward Bernays. That was his thing. He came in and had to say, hey, we're in a place where people only buy things because of their need. And he wanted to change that too. We need to get people to buy things that they now want. Because back in the day, it was all based on, hey, this is what I actually need. These are the things that make sense. I don't have money for all this lavish like stuff. But he wanted to change the way that Americans thought about things. And that's how consumerism was brought into, our lives as Americans, was through Edward Bernays. It's really interesting. You should go and check that dude out, and then look into propaganda and look at the different ways that propaganda is used to influence you on an everyday basis. And you'll be like, huh, yeah, I didn't really think that was propaganda, but yeah, I guess it is, huh? Because they're manipulating us with everything that we see and we consume. So I don't know. It's interesting. I wish they would teach this stuff in public school, but guess what? They do not. They don't teach this in public school. You have to actually go out and search for this sort of stuff. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. We'll watch this later. Currently watching your other videos. Willow Nation. Hey, what's up? How are you? Thank you. Let's see. Has women's institution been corrupted by these emasculated men? Who can they choose for a suitable spouse? Huh. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, there's plenty of good dudes out there. There's plenty of guys that are grounded and they know what's going on because they've had those great influences in their life. And again, that's where it comes from. It comes from the home. It comes from seeing that. Little kids that are little kids are watching the interaction between mom and dad, and they're watching all of that sort of thing. They're watching how you do everything. And that's where they get everything that they take forward in their own lives as a basis for how to be a man. And if the dad isn't around or they're in an abusive type of a situation, that's where things fall apart. But it's all about the family unit, man. I think that it's actually one of the most important important jobs that we have in life is teaching the next generation, raising the next generation. It's not about the job you're going to have. It's not about your career. It doesn't matter. It's about raising the next generation. That's the most important thing I think that a person can ever contribute to society. It's not about your fucking doctorate and your degree and all this other bullshit you're doing on social media and all this other stuff. That's not the important part of it. The important part is the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my take on it. Maybe
and what you give them for them to carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your legacy right there. So I don't know, man. I kind of being a little opinionated on that.
Just a little.
But that's the way I feel about it. I think that's just my take. Let's see here. Well, I think we've about covered everything we need to cover on that. I mean, there's obviously a lot of things that we didn't cover about the reasons why there's this decline in society. But I think that kind of covers a little bit of it, and I think that the solution is basically just it all starts with back to the family and those role models that kids are going to get. And if they don't get that, then you're going to have a weak example and a weak outcome as far as from transition from boyhood to manhood. You're going to have skinny jeans and avocado toast and getting your nails buffed. Plenty of dudes like that in Miami, man. Remember we went down to Miami and saw that? There was dudes with like their eyebrows done and wearing these clothes that look like they're like Don Johnson and from Miami Vice or something. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, that was kind of an eye opener, huh?
Yeah, they had their nails done. Shit. I'm like, these dudes are not dudes, man. How about you go out and get some calluses, man? Right? They'll probably attract a boyfriend, but they might not be attracting too many chicks. I don't know. Maybe the wrong kind of girls, right? They probably attracted girls, but maybe the wrong kind, at least in my opinion. You were going to say?
Oh, I just was going to say, I grew up watching older brothers who were working on their trucks, were mowing the lawns, who were doing what I would consider guys' things. But
that's what guys did,
that
man.
Has gone away. It's easier to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I need a guy to come and trim my lawn," or
I need some DoorDash. I need some, everything's, I don't know. It's different. It's just different. But again, I think that's part of the decline is the decline of our empire, along with the decline of what we're seeing with the males in this country because of all their mixed messages that they've been getting. But hey, let's get to that last question, which was liberal or conservative. And the quote again is, I think the American people have a generous instinct. They understand that we're a nation of immigrants, but if those people are going to live in this country, they have to be put on a pathway to citizenship that involves them paying a fine, making sure that they are at the back of the line and are not cutting in front of people who applied legally to come into this country. And you had said that was from a conservative, and you would be wrong.
Wow.
Yeah. I think London was pretty close on that because he said it was somebody from a liberal from the past. And yes, it is a liberal from the past. It was actually said by Barack Hussein Obama said that. And it's kind of interesting to think that, people of his party had that stance. Bill Clinton used to say that as well. Bill Clinton had the same thought as it related to illegal immigration, because illegal immigration has been a real issue for many years, dating back to when I can first recall. It was an issue during the Reagan administration. And it seems like it's always one of those perpetual issues. We had a recent president that actually tried to do something about it, and he caught a bunch of shit from the opposition because they wanted sanctuary cities and people just to flood into this country with no recourse. But it's interesting to think that just not that very long ago, a Democrat like Barack Obama had said that as president. And you wonder, is he saying that because he thinks that that's the political thing for him to say, but he really doesn't mean that? Or has he, like so many of us, has his views changed over time? Because there's nothing wrong with your views changing. My views have changed on a lot of different things. You know, as you learn something new, as your eyes are open to another perspective, you change, and that's okay to change. Politically, it seems to be something that they don't like to admit that, oh, I've changed my position. But it's okay to change your position. But you wonder, is that something that he believed then and he's now believes something else? Or was he just saying that because it was politically advantageous and very unpopular to say, oh, no, just come in. We will like sanctuary cities. Which do you think it is, Rebecca?
I think it was just a talking point. I don't think he meant it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think he has felt this way for a long time, as many of them have on that side. They just couldn't come out and say those things at the time because it was so incredibly politically toxic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting to think. Obama is now actively trying to scrub that quote. Yeah, probably. Let's see here. Loco says, remember back in the 90s, metrosexual manicures for $500 and other nonsense. Yeah, I remember the term metrosexual for sure. There's been a lot of new terms and all of that as, you know, the next generation comes up, wants to put their stamp on things. Yeah, agreed, London. I think at the time it sounded good on TV. Highly doubt Obama believes that today.
I don't think he believed it back then.
No, I don't think he believed it then either. I think it was just, as you said, a kind of a talking point, and it would have been political suicide for him to come out and say that. Same with Clinton. He was a smart politician. You know, I mean, he was a successful politician because he decided, hey, I'm going to actually work with this Republican Congress and get some shit done instead of just be a lame duck. And he worked with Newt Gingrich and, you know, the Republican-led Congress, which at that time, they actually seemed like they really cared about doing some of the things that the American people want done. But I don't know if we have that today. You know, one of the comments from my earlier poll, somebody had, you know, had that same kind of thing saying, you know, I don't think that what we have today is representing the people. And I would tend to agree with that. You know, I feel very kind of disheartened and disillusioned. And it's sad to think that the only time that they line up to support, you know, only time that they can get unified is when they're spending a bunch of money we don't have for things that the American people really don't want, like more wars and more bullshit projects. That's where they really get excited about getting unified. But when it comes to doing anything for you and I, yeah, I think our system's pretty well broken, and we're going to see how things play out in this next election. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not so certain I'm 100% going to vote, but I probably am, actually. I'm leaning that direction. I was very much thinking, what's the point? But, you know, yeah, what is the point? I guess I can go cast a vote, and, you know, it's going to be what it is, regardless of whether I vote or not. So why shouldn't I just vote, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Yeah. You know, obviously it'll be a done deal here in California. Polls won't even close, and they'll have announced, you know, the winner.
Yes.
As it always is. And, you know, I never thought that was something shady until recently. Like a few elections ago, in fact. Like I was like, that's kind of weird. How are they already telling who's won? You know?
Well, they used to, you know, when you would go back and you would show your identification and you'd go in and you'd vote. This was before all of the mail-in ballots. And at the end of the evening, they would tell you who the presidential winner was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting year. I'm really getting excited. I'm starting to get fired up. Yeah. What do you think? Should we call it an evening? I've appreciated everybody kind of chiming in tonight and hanging out with us as usual. We're just here exchanging some ideas and some thoughts from the northern part of California, communist state that we live in. But we're going to go eat some London broil from that steer that we just butchered. And I took a little sample while she was out putting the chickens up, and it was delicious. So,
oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was very good. So, we're going to go do that, I think, guys. And I really appreciate, again, hanging out with us. It's kind of fun just sounding off and venting. But
yes, it's also enjoyable to hear your input as to what you think on these issues.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I like putting out these polls, just kind of to see where people are at. And I use that as a way to just have fun with these issues, because I think that I like to know what people are thinking, and it's a way for me to do that. And so I have fun when you guys participate in that. And old McDonald says, I wasn't sure about voting this year for the same reason. It all seems so pointless and rigged, but I think I'll vote just because. Yeah, I know that there's arguments on both sides of whether you're an anarchist or you're somebody who's, a diehard Republican or Democrat, or, somebody really bought into the system. And for many years, I was bought into the system thinking that there wasn't shenanigans. But the more you open your eyes to seeing all of the things that they're just overtly telling you, like, who would be opposed to same day voting? Why shouldn't we get a more of a handle on, having people show their identification and all those sort of things, which would certainly give confidence to the people of this country? That's the problem, is that the people of this country are losing faith and confidence in our system. And so when that happens, where do we go from there? That's the only voice we have, is to vote the people in who are supposedly our representatives. If we don't have that, what do we have? Where do we live? What country is this we're living in? Were you going to say something, Ms.
Yeah,
Ford?
I was going to say it wasn't just your identification that you needed to show, but there was also a thumbprint that you gave as well when you voted.
Yeah.
And I think it all should be coming back and should be back to paper ballot.
Yeah, I there's so many ways that they could do this that would make sense, and people would have the assurance and the confidence that, you know what, they're trying their best to make sure that we don't have dead people voting, and we don't have things happening that, people have to question. We shouldn't have to question our elections in this country. But there's a lot of questions right now that people have, because they haven't given us confidence that the system is designed to represent what we hoped. And that's the real problem. So I agree, man. I don't know. I'm a little bit, I don't know. I still question, my motivations moving forward on that, but I'll probably vote just to say I did, right? To get my little sticker. They give you a little sticker you can put on your thing and say, I voted, So.
Yeah, I don't know about the sticker, but
Mexico.
I'll vote.
Mexico has voter ID. That's pretty awesome, man. They are leading the way. Oh gosh. All right, guys. I think we're gonna get on out, and I appreciate it again. What's up, Dean Mullis? The election process is going as planned. Yeah, I think it is, man. I think it is. That's why they're not really saying a lot. That's why you're not seeing a lot of bumper stickers. That's why you're not, hearing a bunch of ads. You might be seeing ads in these swing states, but you don't see ads in California. They don't run ads here, because what do you need to run in an ad in a state that's already spoken for? That all those electoral votes that California has, it's already spoken for, man. So
That's a shame.
Don't shake your head, Rebecca. You know it's true.
Oh, I know it's true. It's true, but it's not correct.
Yeah. Oh, I know. See, wait a minute here. See, now Loco's got an idea. See, that right there is what they do over in Iraq. Because I remember when Saddam Hussein, got his head chopped off, and then they ran actual elections over there. They had them dip their thumb in purple ink. And all the Iraqis were running around with their thumbs and their fingers up, with their little ink spot. And they were just as proud as could be. They were just ecstatic, man. And I can see why. That's awesome, because they felt like they had a voice. And so I used to think I had a voice, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we still have a voice here in a few weeks or to a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we're going to get on out, guys. And, as always, just keep going out and doing the things that you need to do to make yourself better, because it doesn't happen overnight, and it's going to happen a little bit at a time. And pretty soon you'll look back and you'll see all of the accomplishments that you've made and how much better off you really are. There's a lot of talk about this collapse and all these things that are going to be happening and all of those sort of things. Well, that may or may not happen. And if it doesn't happen and you're making yourself better, you'll just be better, and the collapse will have never happened. So we can talk about SHTF and, all of the things that go along in the prepper community may or may not happen. But one thing that can happen is that you go out every day and work on one little thing that you can put behind yourself, and pretty soon you've got a lot of little things behind yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And all those little things become a big thing.
Right on, for sure. Cool, guys. Well, thanks again. And we are going to go enjoy some London broil, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Later.